Dear Diary, today I'm making an infomercial. Film school diary, my 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 film school diary. Hey, welcome to my film school diary. Today I want to talk about our final production workshop. It's been a while coming, but we're finally getting to the final production workshop. So, this production workshop was our last that we all ended up doing. So the way that it was set up, we've kind of talked about it before, is that we each had to do a different job. We either had to be the director, the cinematographer, the producer, or the assistant director. I had done assistant directing already, so I was kind of out. I didn't really have to do any of the jobs for the final one, so I could kind of just hang out and kind of chill. But at this point, everybody was out of ideas. People were tired. They didn't want to be making these projects because realistically, they weren't going towards our grade. It was an in-class type segment. So we didn't want to do this anymore. People were getting tired. People didn't have any ideas. I was like, I've already done my time. I don't want to direct this. I have ideas, but I didn't really want to do anything. And so July raised his hand and said, okay, I'll direct one, but I don't have any ideas. I don't have any concepts that I want to waste on a production workshop. And so I raised my hand and I said, I do have an idea that could be kind of fun, but I don't want to direct it. I'll just write it if that's cool with you guys. And so I was like, I'm going to write this. It's going to be great. Because you know what's a really important part of filmmaking? A script. So I was like, oh, I can just be the script writer and call it a day. So I was like, yeah, I got this. I'll do it. I'll write it. So they're like, that works. Nobody else has any ideas or whatever. So, July will direct it and Jay will screenwrite it. So I'm like, okay, cool. So I've had this idea. I've been on YouTube for a very long time. I've been doing the internet for a very long time. And before I started school, I had a web series. And during my web series, we had a fake product that we were making. It was kind of a fake infomercial. I always love how ridiculous infomercials are. I always love at the very end where you get like this really long, crazy list of things that'll go wrong. I always think it's very funny. So I was like, I love doing jokes like that. I've done many like versions of this. I've done many different types of this commercial. I think it's always very funny, very silly. So I wanted to write for our production workshop. I wanted to write a infomercial. And I think there's something really insane about the weight loss infomercials. To this day, I still think they're kind of insane because they give you very unrealistic ideas. And then it's like for a low payment of $150,000 3 times a year, stuff like that. And so our product, this again was something that I had come up with for my own web series way back when. I had fake products lying around the house. They're just a bunch of you know, children's Advil bottles with like a little fake label and a fake granola bar, but I had the products ready to go. So I was like, oh, you know what? We'll bring it up. We'll do this one. The product was called Fat Be Gone because I was like, that is such a dumb name for a product. So we'll do Fat Be Gone. So that was what I was going to do for the production workshop. And I told July this and he loved it. He's like, oh, that's hilarious. That's so silly. I was like, what we can do also, we can get really bad Photoshop photos of our actors, like the before and after. Because let's face it, all those type of commercials, all those joke, like it seems like a joke almost where you get like, clearly that's not even them. It's like, I lost this much weight. And it's like a different person. It's not even close. So I was like, we could do that. We can Photoshop the actors. We were getting the actors from the school to be a part of this. So we're like, okay, we're going to get one of our really regular girls. She'll love it. She's totally into this. So we were going to do that. Okay, cool. So we started getting stuff together. Nobody really liked the product I had made originally from my original web series, so I had to redo it. And so I was like, okay, cool. This seems like art direction's problem, but I'll do it because no one else seems to. So I then hear from our cinematographer. He goes, well, what are you actually doing on set that day, though? I was like, well, I wrote the script. I'm the screenwriter, And he's like, doesn't count. As somebody who's actually a screenwriter now, I'm like, that still counts. It's very important to have screenwriting for a film. And you have to hear another there. He's like, you have to do another thing on set. You want to be a grip? Do I want to be a grip? I'm over here typing, using my hands for what they're worth, for writing, and you want me to be a grip? I don't think so, honey. So I was like, well, I'm already making the props. I'll do art direction again. Honestly, this whole series should be called How I Became an Art Director by Accident. Anyway, so I was like, okay, fine. I can art direct. I'm already doing it anyway. Might as well get the credit for it. Also means I'm going to do everyone's makeup because for some reason my school thought makeup and art departments were the same department. Just it comes out of my pocket, it seems. Whatever. Neither here nor there. So I was like, okay, cool. So I got some new pill bottles and I made new labels. I went and printed them up officially. Same color scheme because I still thought it was fine. I did like a gold and green gradient. And it was like, fat be gone. We also did our hunger quenching bars, I think we called them, or hunger quenchy bars. I don't know. The actress said hunger quenchy bars, so I guess they're called quenchy bars now. I don't know. Anyway, so I made those up. I got some granola bars, covered them up with my own little labels. It was tea. It was great. It was everything. Me and July went to IKEA and bought a bunch of random furniture for this ad because we wanted to do that kind of like white void. Well, kind of the white void. Don't pay no attention to that. We wanted to do like the white void. We wanted to do like the, hey guys, do you want to try this product? So we were doing that. So we had, I think he bought like a giant roll of white wrapping paper or a giant like curtain or something. And we hung it up with some C-stands, and it was like the white void, and it was great. It was silly. We did that, and then we got a little table for them to put all the products on, because unlike other people, we're going to show it. We heard the criticisms for the last project about not showing the car, so you know what? We were going to show the product. We're going to be like, hey, here is this fake weight loss product, whatever. So we were working with our class, and we're working with the acting class of the same year of us, and we had to kind of rotate different actors in and out for each project because they also needed these for their production workshops. So we had a couple girls. They were really funny. One of them I worked with pretty often after that. She was just hilarious. We ended up, for the girl who was our spokesperson, she had like beautiful, like bright teeth, like big smile. She's felt like a spokesperson. So we're like, oh, that's it. And like July's like, yeah, oh, she's our spokesperson. She's the girl. She's the queen. We love her. Then we had one guy, I think, in it too. And then we had our first testimonial girl. And so what we wanted to do was our idea, because again, this product was supposed to be obviously fake and obviously making fun of that industry of how it just preys on people. So we wanted to have, like, I think we made the pills out of like Tic Tacs or something, because I wasn't going to have these people choking down pills, and I don't know how to make fake pills. So they were clearly orange Tic Tacs. So one of the shots we did, I had to go out and buy ice cream for this, and there's like no freezers in our school for some reason. So like I had to buy ice cream, and it was like melting. Like I feel like I had to run during the class to like the close Ralph's or something and like buy it or whatever. And so the idea is we had the one actor who was like, yeah, I used to be 450 pounds. Now I'm a model. And it was just like dumb stuff like that. As somebody who has been a plus size model, looking back on it now, I'm like, you can be 450 pounds and still be a model. It's fine. But that's not here. That's not what we're talking about. It was a joke about the weight loss industry, and that's what we were making fun of. So we have him with his ice cream, and I forgot to buy a spoon. I just completely lost my mind. It made it very funny, though. So the idea was he was supposed to pour the pills onto the ice cream and then eat it and be like, oh, I feel so skinny, whatever. So July's like, well, we don't have a spoon. He's like, you know what? Just go in with your hands. So he had this fake model who had just lost a bunch of weight, supposedly, clawing at the ice cream like this with pills falling out of it. So stupid, so hilarious. I can't actually find the file. I think July might have had it, but last time I talked to him, he didn't, so I don't know where it is. So I don't think I can show it to you guys, sadly. Plus, I don't know if I actually have the actors' releases because I didn't direct it. So, wah, wah. Either way, I'll describe it to you. That's fun, right? You come here from my storytelling prowess. Anyway, so we're doing that little shot. It's real funny. It's real cute. And we have our main girl. We'll call her D. I love her. I worked with her many times. She's hilarious. So D was supposed to be this actress who couldn't get any parts. She kept getting hired as like an extra on like CSI or something. We picked something where she was like always the hooker who was found at the bottom, and she was always like, "Bitch who dies first" or something. And so what we did was, the whole joke was, now that I take these pills, I ain't that bitch no more. And she did this whole thing where she's like, I'm not that bitch anymore. Whatever. And so we had that. I don't know why this was done. I don't know if July told her to do this or not. But every time she told the line, she unzipped her top a little. And I was like, that's not in the script, but I love it. That's tea. That's shade. That's hilarious. So she would do those little shots. And so I don't know if anyone took shots of our fake testimonial people to Photoshop later. I think we forgot. I don't know if July forgot or whatever. So he ended up getting other photos of people who weren't them that were photoshopped. So like D is probably like barely 5 feet tall. She's real short. And he got this like 6 foot tall woman that was clearly photoshopped to be like a fake before photo. So it added to the camp. It was dramatic. It was campy. So that was pretty silly. Same thing with the guy. These were clearly not them. These were like other actors we knew. And They were photoshopped also, so it was just really outrageous. So we had our main girl. I cannot really remember her name, the one who was being the spokesperson for it. And one of my favorite lines I think I've ever written for a fake infomercial was, I'm not just a spokesperson, I'm a user. So we had her do the little line. And the problem is, I don't know if people necessarily understood my comedy or they understood my jokes, because I have a pretty twisted sense of humor, I think. So we had her doing that. I don't think she understood the joke was that, like, I'm not just a spokesman, I'm a user. And she just kept saying it so kind of like, I'm a user. And nobody's even understand that was like the punchline. I was like, oh, maybe my writing just didn't say it enough. Maybe I need to put like jokes, like Prince size it. Say it funny. I don't know. Anyway, so she kind of just said it, sadly. I mean, it edited it together. It was fine. It looked like we were making a real ad, which is sad because it's clearly supposed to be a joke, because I am not part of the weight loss industry and I don't claim to be. Anyway, so my favorite part was coming up. We had the shot of all my products sitting out. Stunning. They were over there on the little table. It looked great. We had lit properly. And I think we brought in the actor actually from the car accident. We brought him in to do the voice because he's like, I'm a voice actor. Not for me. I was like, I would have preferred somebody a little more upbeat and, the spokesperson-y type voice. So they brought him in, whatever. And Red was in charge of script supervising, which I don't understand. Somebody should have put me in charge of that. I did write the script. I don't know why they didn't say that. They're like, yeah, you can go be an AD again, or you can do makeup. But nobody ever once was like, hey, why don't you do script supervising? You wrote the script. Anyway, so I see them going to record it. And I see her with a red pen crossing out lines, crossing out jokes. So I really like to lay it on thick because I'm campy. I'm a drag queen. I'm camp. I love something that's a little bit out of the pocket. And when it comes especially to joke ads, I want you to know that it's clearly a joke. We're not selling you something. This isn't real. So in my disclaimer for these pills might cause headaches and cause nausea, I put really crazy stuff that cannot happen in mine because that's the joke. So I put in it like, this weight loss pill might cause extra weight gain. That's pretty common. Also kind of funny because it's ironic, I guess. And so we go through a bunch of different stuff, and there's a long list. The guy's supposed to say it very fast, so you cannot pay attention to what he's saying. But if you do listen, it's like, what? What did he say? Because like there's two jokes there where it's like partially he's saying stuff really fast and I can't understand it because they're trying to cheat me out of something. And then when you do hear, you go, wait a second. And so all the lines needed to be really outrageous and crazy. So when you did hear, you went, wait a second, that's not right. Oh, this is funny. So the final one is fat be gone may cause decapitation. Because how? How does that happen? How? That's not even a physical thing. It's something that has to happen to you. So if this pill is causing it, then it can't be real. So I see Red in the corner, like a woman possessed. She was scribbling stuff out, and she's like, decapitation, that doesn't make any sense. That's not funny. That's why it is funny. So they completely butchered my script. And I guess I have to come to terms with this. And I was like, and so when we finally watched the end product, he spoke too fast and didn't pronunciate anything. And these were actual side effects that could happen to a fake pill that wasn't real. Again, guys, this isn't real. These are Tic Tacs. It's a chewy granola bar. Anyway. I digress. Obviously, Carly was there having my back, being my ride or die. And she's like, it's fine, Jay. We all know that you wrote this and it's hilarious. I'm going to go smoke a cigarette. Whatever. She had my back. It was good. It had a little sidekick energy. She had my back through this thing. We love her. We love a queen. So, anyway, I go over to Red. I'm like, girl, you're ruining the script. And she goes, well, it doesn't make any sense. She's like, why are you so upset about it anyway? And I was like, because I wrote it and you're ruining it. She goes, oh, I didn't realize you wrote this. And I was like, wait a second. So, first of all, this is probably the funniest thing I've ever wrote in school up to this point. Up to this point, I don't think any of my projects had really gone over well. And I was like, you guys think this is kind of funny. And nobody seemed to realize I wrote it. I'm like, okay, whatever. And so, the end of it, we finally finish it. And our cinematography teacher's like, bravo, bravo. He's like, July, you did great. This is so funny. You wrote the script so well. And July's like, I would never write this. This is insane. And, like, our cinematographer teacher was like, wait, then who wrote it? I'm like, I wrote it. You knew I wrote it. He's like, oh, it's okay then. So anyway, we got it done. And honestly, it went over really well to the point where people are like quoting it. Again, poor July like had it quoted to him. I think to the end of our school, people were like, hey, remember Fat Beacon? He's like, barely. I just directed it. And he's like, you should probably talk to Jay. And I was like, hi. And they're like, oh, whatever. So Anyway, it was pretty fun, but it was the end of our cycle. The end of our cycle for our production workshops, which we were all very happy to be done with. Because it was cool to have to work with a crew and have to work with all of our friends and all that stuff. But it didn't matter. These weren't actual things we were being graded on. This was in class teaching. And it was kind of a lot of expenses. Like, throughout all the projects, I spent a lot of money because I was the free art direction, it seems. We didn't have like a prop department, which honestly would have saved me some money. Like, to this day, I think I own a Bluetooth because of the car commercial. I, again, was already going to make those props because I had it for my YouTube channel for the Fat Beyond commercial, but out of context, I had to make a bunch of fake products, and it was like, everybody else just gets to come in and use the cameras. They're like, oh, these cameras would be so expensive if I had to pay for it. Luckily, I don't have to. Yeah, I'm still putting a lot of money into these projects that don't matter. So I was like super stoked to be done with it finally, because honestly, it was tiresome. It was expensive and didn't really need to be done. And looking back on it now, the older I get, the more I realize I didn't have to put this much energy or time into these projects. Because yeah, it's fun to do everything with a good heart and put yourself out there. But like, these weren't projects that I could even technically use on my own. They weren't my property. They were technically school's property. I couldn't even really submit them to something because they didn't matter. They were a school thing. They were the school's equipment, school property. So like, why would I care if this was good or if this was solid? I mean, again, being altruistic, that's great, but it didn't really matter. So looking back on it, it was fun because I did get to make a really outrageous commercial with some of my friends. Even if some of my friends didn't seem to understand the jokes, that's neither here nor there. I'm not like mad about it, but I mean, it sounds like I'm mad about it, but I'm not. I just don't necessarily think some people get comedy, which is funny because then the same exact people will tell you what's not funny about your script, and you're like, yeah, but you don't seem to understand any of the comedy, so what's the point? Maybe I write weird stuff, and that's why I must produce my own weird content. I don't know. Either way. So yeah, we did, of course, get to premiere our little projects. We had to do our little production premieres, like for our production workshops, and those were fun because we would watch them, like we'd film them that Sunday, and then we'd have like all week to edit them. And then we could premiere them later on. We could premiere them at the class, and we sometimes would get an actual little theater room because we had a couple of theater rooms that we were allowed to use for these type of things. It was nice. We could do that. It was fun to be able to see our projects on, you know, a screen. It felt a little more realistic because, like, out of context, it was like, I made this thing in class that I get to watch on a computer. Okay, who cares? So either way, I was very happy we were done with it. We did do a lot of ads. I think my favorite will still probably be the Fat Beyond one because I did write it. Because at the end of the day, I am a writer. I think if anything I learned from this project that I do prefer writing. I mean, I love all forms of filmmaking, but I do think writing is my true mistress and my true love. I mean, I like acting too, obviously. I will say, I think the biggest issue is I'm glad that they did kind of force me to be an assistant director for, I think, the second project. Because it did get me out of doing art direction for once. Looking back on it, I think that was probably my biggest complaint about school, is that they really did like me to be art direction. And I think it's because nobody else believed in it or would do it. That and makeup. They're like, huh, they're fine. And it's like, they're not. They're not fine. Some people are shiny, me included right now. I wish I had a me from that time period who could do my makeup right now, because I am shiny. But neither here nor there. So anyway, I want to say after the production workshops, we did start getting into our 8-week projects and stuff like that. We started making actual films for our actual like tenure at the school. I want to say up to this point, we ended up doing like 6 films in like 2 months or something like that. We did a crazy amount of films very quickly. And so I do think at a certain point, this is when it started mattering. This is when we take time for each of our projects. I want to say for the rest of the year, we only had like 2 or 3 more projects to go. We had like our 8 week to kind of see how far we'd gotten. I think we then might have had a second type of music video, like a music film, they called it, where it wasn't supposed to be like music-y. It was supposed to be kind of like serious. And then I want to say we had our midterm project, and then we went into our thesis. All this is still before half a year. I think we're in like 2 months in. So we still had a lot of time to go. We still had big projects to kind of head towards. Also after this was kind of our last production workshop, was the last heyday where it was going to be kind of just our cinematography teacher, just our directing teacher, and just our editing teacher, and I think writing. I think we were going to start getting more direct. We were going to get either more director teachers, or we were going to start getting like producing stuff and start heading towards other programs. So it was weird because this was kind of like a very hard period of my life, but it was also kind of the end of that. And so there was a lot of nerves going on where it was like, oh, are we going to, is this gonna be fun? Is it gonna be scary? Like, where are we going next? Like, you know? So, like, also it was, we were kind of redefining some of the groups. And I think this might have been the end of the first end of the Razor Blades. This was probably the last project we all worked on together that wasn't our thesis. I think they did start splitting us up again because technically, I guess our directing teacher didn't tell us we were supposed to switch off crews every project, but up to that point, we'd all kind of found our grooves. So for like the first 2 months, we were the Race Blades. We were the same group. We were the same 4 people working on the projects. And I do think that at some point after that, our directing teacher was like, "Hey, we have to start shaking things up," and that was nerve-wracking because I had really become accustomed to my crew at that point. I mean, because me and July worked really well. Me and Red worked really well. Me and Carly still work very well. I think it was one of those things where it was almost very nerve-wracking because we all of a sudden were finding ourselves in a different project in a different setting with new people. And I think that might have been sprung to us towards the end of the production workshop. It was kind of like the end of an era, but the beginning of an age. What am I saying? I don't know. So we were kind of like all like, okay, here we go. This is what's happening next. I guess we're heading towards the next phase of our existence. And it was definitely interesting. Also, that was after the production workshops when we were starting to get like, hey, we know you guys have already been paying for all your stuff, but you're really going to start paying for stuff. You're going to like have to start paying for permitting if you are so inclined. You're going to have to start doing special equipment rentals if you want a better camera. That was another thing that I never did because I don't care that much, which is ironic because this was side story tangent. So we could rent a really expensive camera from our school, but we had to have insurance on it, and it was like $1,000 a day, which, girl, I can't afford. That was like half my rent. And these shoots were supposed to go at least 2 or 3 days. That's like my rent. And I'm like, I can't afford it. The school's offering us a free camera without insurance. I'll take it. But everybody's like, oh, we need the fancy one. It'll make my film better. I'm like, it won't make my film better. My film's going to be fine either way. I'm going to be putting this out in HD. The ironic part is I'm now shooting everything on 4K with the same type of camera, and I'm not even having to pay insurance. Life's crazy like that. But yeah, so after the production workshops, we were now going to be at the point where it was like, hey, you have to start paying a little bit more, doing a little bit more work. And I think the biggest problem I had with the school is like, we already were. You guys didn't really provide us with a lot. We had to pay for the actual development of our own physical film. And then when it came to digital, you fought us tooth and nails. And so like, at a certain point, it was like, so that was kind of annoying. And I think the production workshop was the last time they were like, oh, this is the last time we'll be holding your hand. I'm like, when were you holding my hand? When were you not making me do a bunch of crazy stuff on my own? But I guess the technical way was this was supposed to be our last hurrah together. It was supposed to be like, aw. It almost felt like the end of high school. Like, I'll miss you. Have a great summer. We're going to work on our real projects next. So anyway, this also was, I want to say, it was 2 months in. So it was probably around October-ish, I believe, when this was happening. No, November. End of October, November-ish. We were starting getting into like our big projects. We were getting into the holidays. We were also going to have a lot more time free because holiday stuff was coming up. We could have time off finally. Yay! Which honestly, a girl likes the time off. I need it. So we were getting ready for that. And it was fun to have that one last project, kind of our last hurrah together. I do also remember vividly that we did start making really good bonds with those actors. Like I said, Dee was a really sweet girl. I really loved working with her. I worked with her all the way up to my final year, I think. I was the only one who still kind of kept in contact with her, I think, at a certain point. Like, other people, came and went, but me and her stuck together pretty thick for most of my school year, most of my time there. And she'll definitely probably come up in this series again. She's very sweet, and she was very talented, very funny. We also got to, I think, she might have been one of the ones on the one I did the art direction for. I think she was in that too. I think it was like the Fight Club Girls one, which I think we talked about already. She was very good there. And actually, coming to think about it, I think the spokesperson might have been the other girl in that. Good for them. They went from being like Fight Club girls to being like weight loss gurus. It only in Hollywood, baby. It happens. Neither here nor there. So, anyway, loved them. Great time working with those people. They were very, fun. And like I said, we did continue to work on. It was interesting to kind of see like the blatant kind of sexism in the class because all of them, most of the boys we worked with in our class really had a problem with the girl actresses. Were really mad that they were women, which I'm like, yeah, and they were like very upset by it, and it was like very weird. Where they're like, that girl was like such a girl. What did you want her to be? And like it was weird because they had this really weird obsession with some of the male actors, which I brought up before, especially during the car accident one, or well, the car commercial that turned into a car accident. They were like really obsessed with this one guy, and I don't know, I didn't like his vibe. He didn't like that I talked with a lilt in my voice and I was kind of feminine, if you know what I'm saying. I'm not saying it, but you know what I'm saying. He had a problem that I like share so much. He had a problem that I like drag. And back then, also I'll touch on this real quick. Back then, people that was okay, that was like allowed. That was allowed for them to be like that towards me. So they had a problem with the girls for being girly, and then the problem with the theys for being they. Was that cute? Was that fun? Anyway, oh, I'm non-binary. I go by they them sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes. It just depends on the day. Anyway, so they sometimes had a problem with that type of thing, and it was just really interesting to see how, honestly, like looking back on it now, it's like, oh, that couldn't happen today. That could not happen today because I would have rioted, and so would the girls. Like we would have all said something, I mean, we did say something, and it wasn't dealt with. Now it's like, oh, okay. I do think at some point I did have to talk to one of my I think the person who got me into school, one of the counselors, I don't know, very sweet guy, I loved him to death. I had to bring it up to him though. I was like, hey, honestly, I'm having trouble because they're being somewhat just bad towards me because of the way I am. And he tried to help me through it, but nothing really came of it. But either way, I was like, I had to bring this up because, like, sorry to say, but this is not cute. This is not okay. I'm not like vibing with this, and I don't like to have people treat me a certain way because I'm this way. But for the most part, we had pretty good allies. Like that's why I think I was kind of nervous about getting to work with different departments and different things because at the end of the day, I had become really accustomed to the razor blades. I knew for a fact that Carly would always have my back. Like I said, to this day, I could text her right now and be like, "Girl, where you at?" And she'll come running, and I'll be like, "Hey, get on this podcast. This is a podcast. Get on this documentary, baby." And she would. And same thing for like, I know for the most part, Red probably would have my back. And me and July, I think are pretty good. I will say that's the thing looking back on is a lot of schools, you have a lot of different cultures melding and a lot of different cultures meshing. And that sometimes can be just different. And it can be kind of interesting when you start seeing that like, well, they just aren't raised the same way. They don't know the same stuff you do. And they don't like necessarily like you because of this or that. And that can be just a very interesting experience. And again, I think that's all schooling, though. It doesn't have to just be film school or college. Anytime you go to school, you kind of meet different people, and they might not like you because of the way you are, the way you were born, things like that. Whatever. And is it right? No. But it'd be like that sometimes. So anyway, that is the story of the time that I created a weight loss commercial. And again, I don't want you guys to think I'm making fun of weight loss. I'm not. At the time, I was probably at one of my larger weights. I worked hard, but I definitely had a little bit of weight moment. And so, like, I don't want anyone to think that the commercial was ever made in any kind of jest towards people on their weight loss journeys. If anything, it's more making fun of the companies that take advantage of that. Because I think that's disrespectful to people and that's not cute. I don't think that's fun. I don't like when people do that. I don't like when companies go out of their way to hurt people, especially when they're the ones who need the help. I don't think it's cute. So yeah, I always will make fun of that. Because at the end of the day, I think that's what comedy can be used for, is to shine a light on people like, why is this? Why are we discussing this? Why is this the topic? Why are we allowed to talk about people's weight, but we can't talk about why you trying to sell something to them to hurt them isn't talked about. So like that's what I wanted to do, and I feel like film can always be one of those projects or one of those things where you can discuss those type of details, and it's okay to come out because it's art. And luckily, I did have a somewhat good team. At least I had July on my side, having my back for that. And for the most part, we got a project across. Again, sadly, I can't really find it, or I can't show it if I could because I don't have the rights because I didn't technically direct it. I'm sure July would let me have it if he had it, but I don't think he has it either. At a certain point, we just started losing those projects because they weren't actually ours. They were actually, the school's technically. So anyway, thank you. This was the next entry of my film school diary. Thanks for joining me. I hope you enjoyed it. Also, if you guys make sure you follow, subscribe, and like, we really do appreciate all the support. You guys are awesome. I'm trying my best to get as much information to you guys as possible about my time in school and how it was. I always want to be open and honest with you guys, especially when it comes to art and things like that. Sometimes it can be hard. Sometimes it can be interesting to put yourself out there, but I do want to share some important things with you because I think this helps. Hopefully this helps. So have you thought about going to film school? Have you thought about, leave a comment, let me know. I would love to get some engagement with you guys about it, talk